Hey guys, today I'm going to be doing a book review on Outlander by Diana Gabaldon. Starting in 1945 post-war Scotland, Outlander tells the story of Claire Randall, who is on a second honeymoon with her husband. While out on a walk, Claire finds herself in the middle of an ancient stone circle. Suddenly, she is hurled back in time into 1743 Scotland. Claire finds herself in the midst of clan battles and various different dangers that threaten her life. Even a young Scotsman who tests her fidelity to her husband. Okay, this is one of those books that I have been probably wanting to read for about a decade now. That's how long I've heard about this series and have been wanting to read it. I've constantly heard really fantastic things about this book. So what finally prompted me into picking up this book is that on August 9th, if I'm not mistaken, Starz is going to be showing a television series based off this book. So what a perfect time for me to begin so that I can read the book and watch a television series at the same time. I'm going to go into the things that I did like about this book, and then I'm going to head into the negatives because I do have quite a few kind of mixed feelings. Diana Gabaldon's research is really stunning, and I can see that she really did her research, and just everything from mapping out this world, detailing the looks of 1743 Scotland, everything down to food and clothing, historic sites, the medication and surgery procedures of the time period. This book can get a bit lengthy and a little kind of boring on occasion because there is so much description, but overall I do think Diana Gabaldon's research and her descriptions were stunning and really gave me a sense of being in this world. As for the characters, I did enjoy the majority of the characters for the most part. Like I said, this book starts in 1945, post-war, and Claire, she used to be a nurse during the war. So she witnessed firsthand kind of all the dangers of the war and seeing all of these terribly wounded men come into her presence. Claire is very much a very modern woman for 1945, which is fantastic because she's intelligent and independent, and she doesn't just kind of sit around and let her husband or any of the male figures kind of think for her. She's also deeply in love with her husband, Frank, though you quickly learn that they have some issues going on between them since they've been separated for the majority of the war, and so that's basically what this second honeymoon is for them to kind of reconnect and regrow their relationship. Claire was oftentimes a pretty hilarious character. I'm surprised how many times I physically laughed during this book. I was expecting this book to be like really heavy with the drama, but it's actually quite humorous. And there's a really hysterical part in the 1945 segment of the story, and Claire lets the F word slip from her mouth, which was really great. So yeah, Claire has a great sense of wit and humor, and she is in no way dull or boring, I will give her that. But Claire can also be highly stubborn and demanding when she wants to be. And I love that Claire's personality continues and carries over into 1743, a time notorious for women, you know, not having the same rights as men, and women kind of just lingering in the background and keeping their mouths shut. I was surprised how quickly Claire kind of adapted to being in 1743. She is momentarily stunned, but at the same time, this is where her intelligence kicks in. She realizes that she has to tread lightly and kind of figure out things for herself and not let anyone onto the fact that she's from the future, because that would be seen as weird. And then we have Jamie Fraser, a hot young Scotsman who quickly developed some attachment to Claire, we'll say. I kept thinking of James McAvoy when I was reading Jamie. Did anyone else keep thinking of James McAvoy? For some reason I just couldn't get James McAvoy out of my head. Sadly, James McAvoy has not been cast in the Outlander TV series. I did like Jamie overall as a character. He's really young and brash and a bit arrogant, and he's always willing to play the sacrifice. I am going to say that I started having some major issues with Jamie about 200 pages in, but because of spoilers, I'm not going to get into that. If you have read this book and you would like to discuss some of those issues in regards to Jamie's personality, comment on that down below and make sure you put spoilers ahead in your comment somewhere so that way people reading through the comments won't get spoiled. But yeah, I would really love to talk to you guys who have read Outlander about some of these very controversial issues, especially in regards to Jamie. But yeah, even though I did have some issues with Jamie for a good chunk of the book, probably over 400 pages, I did start slowly liking him again. As for other characters, there's Colum and Dougal. I hope that's how their names are pronounced. They are two brothers who kind of operate this clan. There's also Rupert and Murtagh, who are two clansmen who travel around with Claire and Jamie on occasion, and they were pretty fun to read. There's also the villainous British officer named Randall, who has some really dark, twisted secrets, and he heavily reminds Claire of her husband, Frank. There's also this really young girl named Leary. I was worried she would get on my nerves at first, but I kind of liked her in my own weird way. She was a great foil to the Claire and Jamie relationship. Then there's also Gillis Duncan, who is also a very modern woman in this world. And she has some deep, dark secrets as well, which is very interesting. There are tons of characters that populate this book. Probably too many characters. Some of these characters only pop up for a couple chapters. So yeah, maybe some of the characters needed to be omitted, because there were some characters I think were a bit unnecessary. As a warning, this book is pretty explicit and delves into some deep issues. If you do not like scenes involving lengthy sex scenes, explicit rape scenes, you may not like this. The language is also pretty heavy. This world is populated by Scotsmen. What else can you expect from the language department? And this book is also quite graphic when it comes to gore. There's a lot of descriptions of gore and injuries and fixing of people's bones and body parts. It's kind of gross. There was a part with a hand. I'm not going to spoil, but there's a part with someone's hand that I had to clench my own hands. It made me hurt. And this book is also a bit controversial with this aspect of homosexuality, so if you think that will turn you off, then don't read this book either. So that was everything that I did enjoy about this book, so I'll move on to the things that I did not like so much. Number 1, there's a huge family tree in this book. I needed a family tree. There wasn't one in here. I had a hard time keeping straight who was related to who. And number 2, a crazy amount of twist after twist after twist. I do love a good plot twist, but this book had too many. And because of that, I think that is why I had a hard time keeping track of who was related to who. And some of the plot twists just felt so unnecessary. Number 3, too much plot. There was a lot of plot in here that was unnecessary. This book is like... My edition is a little over 600 pages long, and there's just some elements going on in here that I was like, why is this even needed? What does it serve for the overall purpose of the story? And because of this, that made the story feel kind of boring on occasion and hard to get through, and just some plot elements were just dragging. Like I said, so much description and just info dumping is how I'll word it, I guess. Number 4, the plot elements that I did enjoy were often kind of pushed aside and quickly wrapped up. Without spoiling anything, there is one particular character who I really loved, and I got really invested in this character's story. And just when you kind of think something's going somewhere, the plot shifts, there's some twists, and then that's all kind of brushed to the side, and you don't get to learn any more about this character's story. And then the plot, it goes away from that and moves on to the next plot. And in the meantime, I'm sitting there thinking, wait, I want to know what that was all about. And number 5, out of character moments. Even though, like I said earlier, I did really like Claire and Jamie, there were quite a few instances where they did things that were totally out of character, and I just could not stand it. Like I said, Claire is very independent and intelligent, but there's a few instances where suddenly she feels kind of passive and just lets things happen to her. And Jamie is very naive and fun at the beginning of the story, and then all of a sudden there's just some very questionable moments that happens, and that kind of destroys my whole look at Jamie. And these questionable things that Jamie does are just very uncomfortable and just put me in a rage. Overall, even though I did have quite a bit of negatives in regards to this book, I still overall like the book, and I am definitely going to continue this series because I'm interested on where it's going. I do recommend this book for historical fiction fans, people who love a good romance story, also a touch of fantasy to historical fiction if you like that sort of thing. And like I said, this book has some very mature subject matter. Make sure you can handle that before going into this book. So that's it for my review. Have you guys read Outlander? Do you intend on reading Outlander? And do you plan on watching the new television series? Just let me know in the comments below. So that's it for this book review. I hope you guys enjoyed. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you liked this book review, you may like these. Bye guys.